About setting yourself up for success, there's two levels to that. Like, if you're in an established company, a publishing unit needs a lot of maturing to do. So I'm going to talk a lot from that perspective about the learnings of what it takes to bring a full game to market and maintain a live title. And then when it comes to indie developers wanting to publish their own games, I will go into a few tips and tricks, but this is at the level a bit further along when you're already on the market and how you think about monetization versus feature implementation. So, publish your own games. Let's go. Content for today is going to be about me, because why not? What is publishing? What does that mean in gaming? Publishing functions, publishing versus self-publishing, the publishing process. There's a lot of publishing in this. Launch versus live, PCs versus console, tips and tricks, safeguard processes, which we have a few and they're super great. Common mistakes. This is going to be the fun fact. And then some Q&A. And I'm going to show you a tool that I built a few years ago called the Release Calculator. Okay, about me. I have 7+ years in gaming, so that's not a long time. My first job was at Activision. I was brand manager for Crash Bandicoot and Tony Hawk back in the pandemic. And then I met a woman on a mother's forum on Facebook. And we went for coffee, and she worked for Avalanche. And she said, we want to start our own publishing unit, and we have no release managers, and no one has experience. I was like, yeah, okay, why not? So I started there, and I'm still there. Now I'm the most senior person in the room when it comes to publishing, and I actually have some. This is me and my daughter. She was just a baby when I started at Avalanche, so yeah. She has no idea about gaming, and hopefully won't get into that. Hopefully she'll get into something that pays better. Yes. Okay. What is publishing? So when you think about publishing, when you think about making a game, you think about code, you think about art, you think about design, you think about QA. And this is the development process. This is what it takes to build a game, but everyone knows that. However, publishing is how do you release a game? And there are various functions, and we have a big publishing unit. Well, when I say big, is like we have big aspirations, but we're like maybe 15 people, which is quite big. So we have RM, which is my department, release management. We have PubQA, which is a department specifically designed for looking into compliance for platforms. We have data and analytics, because we're trying to make data-informed decisions nowadays. And then we have marketing and sales and partnerships. But all of these development and publishing are interconnected. So RM works with code and QA for deliveries, and then marketing works with art and design. So in a nutshell, this is what I see publishing to be. And then the pros and cons of self-publishing. When you self-publish, you get a lot more creative freedom because you don't have to answer to anyone. You develop for what platforms you want, so you have to look who's your customer. Do you develop for PC, which is quite easy, or do you, well, easy, or do you develop for console, because that's where your player base would be. You control your own roadmap, so you decide when and what to release, and you take all the profits. But there are some cons, and that is you must finance yourself, which is super difficult. However, I just met a guy in the lounge area who is a 2-man company, and their MAU are about 500,000 a month, which is fantastic. It's free to play, but yeah, they get some finances. But yeah, everything is theirs because they publish themselves. But however, you take all the risks. So if your game fails, well, that's not great. And you need a lot more talent and functions or develop a lot more skills. All right, and it can be very costly. That's it. The publishing process. So I just want to talk about what RM does for our company. Release management means a lot of things for various companies. So if you go to EA, you have the people who upload your builds. You have the people who set up your storefronts. You have the people who do your pricing. You have sales, etc. However, at Avalanche, we do everything. So this is basically just the roadmap for launching a full game. You have your pitch, your concept, pre-production, production, alpha, beta, submission, and launch. And where I come in as a release manager is I first come in the pre-production phase. I consult on release strategy and I provide compliance for whatever features they want to implement at launch. So I am basically for Avalanche the platform expert. I know what it takes, or I know how to find out what it takes to launch on console and what we need to look out for. Then I do concept submission to first parties and sometimes CVAA considerations, but we don't really apply that. All right, the next phase where I get involved is the production. We set up all the products on platforms. We do dev account creation so that they can do the builds. We have achievements set up and age rating consultations. And I'll get more into that later. Then at Alpha, we do first-party feature approvals. We finalize the base game product setup, and we do the age rating submissions that can take a few months to get approved, depending on what areas you want to launch in. During beta, we do the storefront and pricing setup, and we do the certification slot booking, because whenever you launch a game, you need to go through full certifications on every platform. All right, during the submission phase, we do the submissions, of course, storefront and pricing submissions and waiver request. And during launch, we support with War Room and consult on hotfix planning. Because usually you do launch your game, however, if you launch on console, you know that it's gonna be quite some waivers because they have so many rules and regulations, and then you have to fix them in a day one patch or whatever you negotiate with them. Next, and this is what is the core of my work, because we launch a new game once in a while. But for example, our biggest title, which is The Hunter Call of the Wild, which is the #1 hunting simulator in the world, has been going strong for about 8 years now, and we constantly release new content. So we have become super ambitious. We used to release about 4 times a year, and then some hot fixes in between if needed. However, now we're moving towards an 8-week cadence for our releases. So that's going to take a lot of planning. So when it comes to live updates, we're looking at planning, development, release candidate phase, certification, and publishing. And I come in during planning when I consult on compliance and new features, and I'll get more into that. Remaster request, age rating consultation in case they want to add some new content, because we're all PG-13, and if they have some F words and stuff, we need to reapply for those or just make sure that we're not compliant. And consult on bug fixes. All right, development. We do the DLC setup. Those are usually requests. We do new achievements, search slot booking, feature approval, etc. RC phase, storefront setup, pricing setup, key requests for testing, certification build submission, pricing submission, store page submission, and publishing, store page checkup, and scheduling hotfixes if required. So it's basically the same as for a full game, it's just a bit more in depth. Okay. Okay, this is my favorite part. So, no, this is not my favorite part. So I just went, I wanted to cut this slide, but then I thought there was something I could add to what I've already talked. So releasing a full game, this is the publishing process that we're looking at. We have the product release strategy where we're looking what platforms do we want to release on. And this one is applicable again and again and again, because you release your game on Steam, let's say the first time, which most publishers tend to do. And then you want to launch on PlayStation, and then you want to launch on Xbox, and then you're thinking about Nintendo. So you apply the same principles over and over again. So you have to think about compliance considerations, Age ratings, because that's a huge part. I found out last year that is a bit optional. It's only if you have signed those agreements with the age rating boards, but it's what you should do. Then you have the GM submissions and cert. And this is where the fun begins, because you will cert and you will fail. So I actually have a personal record since I've been in this company for 5 years. And my own personal record and shame is 10 failures in a row. That is where it's super important to have mastery of your domain, to know how to communicate, to know diplomacy. I was quite in the beginning of my career when we were trying to launch a game that was in pre-release on various platforms, and we were trying to do a full launch. But the game was buggy, and the company had not invested a lot of money in its maintenance. So we were just trying to push it out there to the market and then see what happens. So we went through 10 rounds of Xbox certification processes and failed all of them. And because of the inexperience of the publishing unit, we never launched that game. A lot of money was lost. I think that game was fantastic. People were super disappointed. But that's what I mean, where it's so important to have the confidence, to have the diplomacy. You can find out the facts. Like, the facts are so easy to find on Google on what it takes to publish a game on PC. Well, console is a bit more complicated because you need a partner account, but that's easy to get and find out information. But it all comes to how confident you feel. So that's the personal record I had. So the solution to that would have been a lot more diplomacy and a lot more waivers, and then we could have fixed everything. But I didn't know that back then. Then you have storefront setup and pricing, which is very important and different for every platform. And I think I'll get more into that later, and publishing. But now we come to my favorite part, which is publishing for live title updates. And the first step in publishing for a live title and maintaining a live game is roadmap and planning. Usually we plan the roadmap around October, November, and then we used to just plan it and go with it and go with the flow, and then communication would get lost and fragmented and so on. Now we plan a roadmap and we have check-ins every 2 months to make sure we're on track. However, me as a publishing person, release manager, what do I look at? So this is a roadmap, actually a real example from 2024 that we had for one of our games. We had 3 content releases, which is the monetization part, because every DLC is paid. Then we had a feature implementation row, and then other features. It continues. This is the crop that I made. So when I look at this roadmap, what do I see? What would you look for? Any idea? What would you look for when you're a publishing person? Where's the money? Yes and no. So what you look for is matching feature implementation and monetization. So when you launch on console, you have to certify your game. It goes through a lot of testing. Like I told you, we failed 10 times. So it's super important, super strict. However, once you have passed that hurdle, you go on something called fast track or ACU bypass. I think they changed the naming last year. Whatever, fast track, where you simply can update your game and release new DLC without the certification process. So when I look at a roadmap, I see something that concerns me here. And what concerns me is the fact that they want to release a big DLC together with regional expansion. Why does that concern me? It's because regional expansion is a full certification process on PlayStation, only on PlayStation. So it's very important to know, communicate with your platform partners, to know if what you want to do is feasible from their point of view. So, because this is a full certification process, if we go in it and we failed, because let's say our game hasn't gone through a full certification process in like 3 years. So, all the bugs, all the little crashes, all the shit icons that were not showing correctly according to PlayStation, they will be found out if they actually test the game. So, when I see that this is happening, this is very concerning because if we go through a full certification and we fail, we cannot release this DLC in time. And then the finances don't work. And then everyone is pissed at a higher level and we get a lot more pressure on us. So, what do? We do the following. So, remember, your game is on fast track, correct? Right now. Your game is on fast track because you've already released it and so on. So, the first thing you do is you submit your DLC. You submit your DLC, you certify it, you schedule it for publish. And that is how you have guaranteed that the revenue will come in and it won't be affected. So you submit your DLC, that goes through a fast track certification on all platforms, they barely test it. And then you schedule it and get it ready to publish. And once that is done, then you start certifying your new features. And that means that you give yourself enough time, which means about 2 or 3 weeks before your actual release, when you want to start certifying your new features. And then if everything goes well, you can ship your DLC together with your new feature. However, if things go to shit and your game gets stuck in a certification loop, you have ensured that you can release your DLC and you are not impacting your revenue, and you can certify this feature by next time, which is going to be in like 2 months. And that gives you enough time to fix things. Okay, so this is my favorite part to look at actually in my job. Then in the live title update, you have slot booking and RC delivery, where you communicate with your QA teams and you book slots on PlayStation and Microsoft if needed. And you do risk reports, uploads and MDTs, yeah, whatever. Certification processes, ACU, fast track versus full cert, TRCs are tested, waivers are implemented. Patch scheduling according to the roadmap. PC remains a manual process where you actually have to push a button to release, and then publishing, and that is it. So I'll leave this in case you want a picture. Cool. I hate these slides. PC versus console. Okay. Launching on PC. More than just a simple platform, as you all know, it has a lot of benefits. It's a very simple cert process. Well, for me, who doesn't do any code, so I don't know what it is like for you. Intuitive branch setup for devs and for release. Intuitive storefront setup. Very non-invasive build validation. Some drawbacks: super crowded. I have no idea how many games were launched this year, but I know last year it was about 70,000 on Steam, so the marketplace is super crowded. You don't really have the support that you have with console. Console is a very personalized support where you get to talk to real people who advise you according to your game. While on PC, that's not really the case. Oh, and I had a fun fact about Epic. Yes. Did you know that in order to release on Epic, you want to have your game live on Steam, because of course you're not going to release on Epic and not Steam. You need to support crossplay between EGS and all other PC platforms. I thought that was a fun fact. I don't know if everyone knew that, but I didn't last year when I wrote this slide. Yes. Okay, this is just how the Steam interface looks like. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to go super quickly through this. This is where you populate your storefront, and this is where you set up your builds and you launch them from. And then you have Epic, new interface. I hate it. I'm sorry. If there's anyone from Epic here, we love working with you. You have create your products in offers, populate your products in pages, localize in localize, pricing. Why is everything on a different tab? I do not know. and then publish builds to live from there. And this is fun. I had this is another thing, but I didn't know how to take it away, and I was like, fuck it, who cares? But it's coming out. You know, then you set up your achievements there if you need to. So launching on console, very regulated and closed platforms. You have to adhere to their compliance. XRs, TRCs, there's a lot of documentation, hundreds and hundreds, and you have to adapt them to your titles. So a lot of reading. Cert processes are quite long, full certification, ACU bypass once you've passed everything. Currently, it's about 5 days on Xbox, 3 on PlayStation. They really cut down on their testing, which is great. Patch versus DLC. You have to think about patch goes through like a fast track process, 24 hours. Everything okay? Yes? Okay, cool. And DLC is a 3-day certification on PlayStation 5 on Xbox. So storefront setup and certifications, blah, blah. Yes, this is, it was just an example. I don't have the similar for PlayStation. This is for Xbox. You have your onboarding, you submit your game concept, you create your product, submit for certification, configure for release, publish, test, release, sustain. It's really cool. And once you set up your project on Xbox, you can set it up for Xbox, PC, and according to industry experts, the future of gaming is handheld devices. And if you construct for PC, you will also be able to launch on handhelds. So that's something to really keep in mind, I think, as an advice. Tips and tricks, yay, fine. Cool. This is me. These are just like Slack print screens that I've made. So change management. Stuff always changes. I don't know if you remember the roadmap, but we also had a feature called multiplayer parties. I didn't zoom in on it because it had been moved so many times according to our advice, because they kept wanting to launch it with a content update, and we would have just screwed ourselves completely. So it was delayed for about 6 months because according to their testing, everything would have failed, and we would have been blocked from releasing any new content for a while. So change management here is assessing, talking. We have a big publishing unit, okay? We have marketing, we have pub QA, and then we have our development. And when you work in a big company of 500 people or over 100, you tend to work in silos. And one of my main goal is to bring people together, bring communication together. And this is where that comes in. It's about they feel confident in their build. Oh, it's not a big deal. It crashes here and there. It's not a big deal. However, we have PubQA. PubQA specially tests for compliance on different platforms. They give us reports. Look, this is going to be found out. You're going to fail. So then we go back to the POs and development team and say, we need to move this. And sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But most times nowadays they actually listen, so they moved. Then emergency hotfixes, always. Somehow we managed to plan everything great. Everything is certified, ready to go live next week. Everything's fine. And then the night before, we have to hotfix PlayStation. So you always have to take that into account if you work for a big company. All right. AI tool integration. So I've recently started using ChatGPT, mostly as a therapist, but also, it's true, but also in my work. So AI, not a lot of people, not as many as you would think, use it. But I found it that it's very easy to do some tasks that I really don't want to do. And yes, people use it to write their emails and their posts and whatever. But I'm going to give you a concrete example of how I've used it that I think was super great and pretty innovative a little bit, maybe. Maybe you'll think it's shit, but I thought it was cool. I bragged to everyone about it, everyone. People who didn't know me, people who knew me. Like if I would sit for a coffee, I was like, look, I did this. Okay, so this year we used to be called two companies. We used to be Expansive Worlds and systemic reaction. And we published Gen Zero, Call of the Wild. So Expansive Worlds was all about like nature and roaming and shooting animals and so on. And systemic was more like shoot other people, machines, etc. Okay, but those two units now have merged into Avalanche Studios completely. We used to be Avalanche before also, but yeah. However, what does that mean for me as an RM? I don't care. That doesn't mean anything. However, the storefronts, all the storefronts said systemic reaction and expansive worlds, and that those all needed to be changed. And I don't know if you've ever populated a storefront on Partner Center, where you have to download that Excel and then copy paste into all the languages, because our games are localized in like 15 languages, of course, because otherwise, how are you going to reach your markets and get your money? So you have to copy paste and copy paste, and we have like about 100 DLC on Call of the Wild alone. Oh, fun fact, when you set up your game, make sure you set it up well, because we set up Call of the Wild, Xbox, and a PC SKU separately. So we don't have 100 and something DLC. We have 200 and something DLC because everything is doubled. Great. That's one title. But we have legacy titles that needed to be updated. So we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of products where you have to download the Excel, copy, paste, upload, certify, not certify, publish again, etc. Okay, so how I use ChatGPT. I figured that would take me about 6 weeks, like, you know, because I have other tasks. It would take me about 6 weeks to download all of those Excels and switch them up and upload them again and shit like that. So I was like, how can I do this? And I said, I went, AI, I heard of it, whatever. I went to ChatGPT and I was like, how can I do this? And he said, oh, use this JavaScript. Who, me? No, I don't know. What? No. Is that coffee? No, of course I know it's not. But yeah, no, absolutely not. I said, then use these Excel tips and tricks. And I tried. I tried for like half an hour. I was like, I can't do this. I just can't. I can't. And then I thought about asking this question, can you do it for me? Because it gave me a shit ton of solutions. And I was like, but can you do it for me? Yes. I was like, why didn't you say that the entire time? Okay, so I found out that for the low price of paying like 200 crowns a month, I'm from Sweden, so that's 20 euro, like Netflix. I can upload unlimited files to ChatGPT. I upload the source file and then just upload them over and over again. And what would have taken me 6 weeks to do, I did in about 4 hours. So that really saves me a lot of time. Not, of course, I made the mistake of like bragging to my manager about it because I was, you know, like me. However, I could have just done that and watched TV for 5 weeks and say that I'm working on that. So, you know, you pick your battles. So that is my one case on how I'm using AI. And then sanity checks. Yes, we have so many cool tools that we've developed. Don't take a picture of that. That's proprietary. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's just an Excel, like anyone can think of it. But what do we fail on the most? We fail a lot on build versioning number. Stupid. So then we have this what we call dev deliverable checklist, where we have all our platforms, and this is filled up by QA, and they put in whatever build versioning number we're releasing with the DLC that we're releasing. Yes. And we have a tab, I think I cropped that out, of all the past ones so that we can compare and make sure we increment our builds higher. And then what we fail a lot on, stupidly again, is, yeah, this is an actual email, payload, whatever. So that is also very important to have in there because the QA will test for it and you know how to prepare so that you put in your waivers and you move forward. Back on fast track. Okay, and these are some common mistakes that we've made over the years. Naming conventions. Very important to establish. This is more of like what I think it's nice to have. For example, on Steam and EGS PC, you can change the name of your DLC whenever you want. However, that's not the case for Partner Center on Xbox. So if you name your DLC Cool DLC, that's how what it's going to be like forever. And then your publishing unit is going to change, and Cool DLC, nobody will know what that is, which wastes a lot of time. So when you're naming conventions, you should really think about them carefully and do it from the beginning, because it's going to save you a lot of time. Build versioning number. Oh, I have a fun story. I don't know if this is still the case on Partner Center because I haven't made this mistake in a long time. However, one time we were releasing a DLC, and QA gave me a build, let's say 1.5, and it was a whatever build. They tested it and so on and so forth, and this was about a month before release. And then when I get the actual build for submission, they accidentally, not accidentally, because we didn't have those lists. They accidentally send me the final build incremented 1.5. Okay, I had not remembered because this was a month ago. So I upload 1.5, and Partner Center does this fun thing where if your build is incremented the same, it will replace it. So once I upload the new build, the old build overrides it. So what do? I go through the whole cert process, which is on fast track, and then I release it into the wild, the shit build. So everyone is freaking out. We have to take it back. Back then you couldn't roll back. So this was before the rollback process. And resubmit and relaunch, and it was about 24 hours of crap. Yeah. Okay. That's my fun story. Then we have pricing. One time one of my colleagues released a game for a DLC for like half of the price it was, and the higher ups were very unhappy about that. So you really have to check. And depot setup is another super fun thing where we made another mistake. This is like actual examples. So when you release on Steam, in order to certify, you need to have your build, but have a debug depot. Yes. Okay. But what you have to remember is after you've gone through the certification process is to disable that debug depot. Well, we didn't do that. So the debug went out to thousands of people. This game was super advertised. It was just a phishing game, so we're not talking like crazy numbers. However, it was like all hands on deck, people working until like 2 a.m., how to mitigate. So don't release, disable that when you release on Steam. All right. Wow, what time is it? Okay, it's not bad. It's not bad. I actually wanted to show you before we go into questions, I wanted to show you my release calculator. So a few years ago, I thought it would be because we're such a big company and everyone needs, and instead of asking me when should I deliver assets to you? When should I deliver builds to you? I said, why don't we make a calculator? We have different days, different requirements for each platform. So in order to certify pricing on PlayStation, it takes 7 days, but to certify on Microsoft, it takes 5 days, certify a full build 3 days, 5 days, etc., whatever. But I'm going to jump out of this one and I'm going to go into here. So I developed this tool called Release Calculator. Look, when I say I developed it, I mean I had the idea for it, and then I went to a guy who knew Excel, and then he helped me do it. So there was a lot of involvement in here. It wasn't just me, of course. This full game one is a bit out of date, so it's a bit shit. So I'll show you this one. I've separated into full game, patch only, because you do hotfix sometimes. Patch plus DLC is my favorite. So for example, what this does is it takes into consideration all the dates required by each platform. I've separated them into console no, I didn't. What the? No, okay, I just separated them into Xbox, Windows, and PlayStation. Yeah, because Steam and Epic are so easy. They go through like 1-day process once you've launched your game. So, and I've separated them if your game is on fast track or full certification. So let's say I want to release DLC on October 14. Yes. I put October 14 here. We're on fast track, so this spits out fantastic dates. One is for the dev team, which it tells me they have to deliver builds to me on the 26th before. However, if they feel super confident in their build and they don't want to hotfix, they have more time, but they need to deliver builds the latest on the 6th so that we make sure that everything is scheduled. And then this is dates for marketing. We need pricing and store listing handover on the 2nd. Why? Because we need 7 days to certify. And of course, we need some time to make things, to populate the storefronts. So this tool has been super, super useful. It's currently used by the entire company to figure out when they need to deliver things, because RM in our instance is the last frontier. So RM sets everything up, RM sets everything live. So, and then we have a full certification. So you see that the dates changed. So this is how I set up the release calculator, and I think it's pretty cool. And I have that for a bundle only. I have that for coming soon pages, and then this is my database. So yeah, do better than me. Okay, this is it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, okay, those are my notes. Yes. Okay. Thanks. I hope you found it useful. Yes.
We have about 25 minutes for questions, so fire away, people.
Oh my God. Or coffee. Questions or coffee. You decide. We can have like 5 minutes for questions and then you can have a drink.
Thank you for the talk. I'm a solo dev, so I have to do all the things, and these kind of calendars are, of course, super useful. But of course, our scheduling is very different as an indie. So, do you have any tips to look out for, like doing basically an Excel where you put all the festivals in and all this kind of stuff, or because of course for me it works quite differently.
What do you mean, put all the festivals in?
I mean, like, Steam Next Fest and all this kind of stuff, like,
Yes, absolutely do that. Actually, I have another fun story from that. Our game was in Steam Fest something, which meant that people paid for it basically $1 or something like that. So what's super important you have to have the calendar of all of these sales. It's super important, and sign up for all of them. However, super important is to make sure that your builds can handle the influx, because sales put our game into Steam Fest, but never told dev or central tech, so our game crashed everywhere. So what's the point of that? So of course, keep in mind those, but make sure you have a stable enough build to handle whatever flux of players you think might come in. And it's very important to consider data there. And I have found that when it comes to Steam, Steam has a lot of their documentation and library public. So it's very easy to just go on ChatGPT and ask it questions regarding setup on Steam and how you should think about putting things on Steam. And it will give you very good answers that are actually hard to find by yourself in documentation.
Who do I hand the mic to?
Any curiosity? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. It was very informative. One question, let's say you have a live game, it's on fast track, you do a big update, and you have a bunch of new features in there. How could those new features trigger a full restart or failure? Is there anything to look out for there?
That's a good question, because it wouldn't, right? You could just put your features in and submit it on fast track. No one's going to check it and have them out, but they will if they find out it's not good. I mean, we're talking about PlayStation and Xbox. They will take your game out. So it's about morality, let's say. So what we do, I want to implement a new in-game store carousel. Okay, I'm not putting any virtual currency in my game, which would be a whole new story, but I'm directing people from my game to the PlayStation Store. So then I'm thinking, is that a full cert or is not? Is it not? I don't know. But I will email the CertOps team and send them screenshots and ask them, is this a full certification process or is it not? And they will actually be kind enough to look and advise you on how to make things happen. And for example, for this particular example, this is a full cert on PlayStation and not on Microsoft. So Microsoft is easy peasy to go, Xbox, I mean. So they wouldn't, to answer your questions, they wouldn't find out, but they would later. And if they find out later that you've implemented an in-game store without them knowing about it, then that's going to be a problem. They will put your game into full certification to test it, that it adheres to their standards. Yeah.
So it's kind of on you to submit for full cert.
Yes, it's a it's a how English. Yeah, it's a volunteer process, but that's what you should do. Those are the best practices, because when you talk about launching on PlayStation and Xbox, those are high standards. Like, players pay a bit of money to play that game, so they will complain and they will find you out, and it's not great. On the similar fact, they constantly receive player feedback. So even if your game has been on fast track for, let's say, 2 years or something, they constantly receive player feedback, and they can take you off of fast track if you don't maintain the standards. Because, I mean, that has not happened. But the threat was there. Yes.
Any more questions? No one? Going once? Going twice?
Sold. Cool.
I'd like to thank you for your
Thank
presentation.
you.
Then
Thank you
I'd
very
like
much.
I'd like to thank everyone for attending.
Thanks. This is so great compared to the 6 people I had last year. Yes.
If there are any more questions that you would still like to ask, please feel free to remain in the room. It will be available. There will not be immediately be a talk after. So if you do have questions, you can go up to the front and ask them. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful DEF CON.